Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. If you missed the previous segment which Jason and I were handling with Dr. Harinudhuti Vijay Singha, please go on YouTube and search for the keywords GMSL and you will be able to find those segments as well. So, but too bad if you missed it because we had a lot of fun doing that segment. But right now we have three wonderful guests who are with me right now. We kicked off Jason out of the studio because he doesn't have enough room over here as usual. Yeah, we have Miss Chulani Kodikara, Kumudini Samuel and Sairuni Sivardana right here. Wonderful people who are working, who are concerned about violence against women. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
We're fine.
Okay, this is the usual question that we ask from every guest to come on Good Morning Sri Lanka. Are you morning people?
No.
Uh-oh.
Sometimes.
No. It depends.
It depends on what? Coffee, tea,
Waking up.
somebody calling you saying there's a case about domestic violence. Does that make your morning something interesting that you can read? Or some people like reading in the morning, you know. The first thing that they do is having something to read. So you're not. Depends.
No, just get out of bed and get ready, get the kids on to school.
Right. Okay. So tell us a bit about the commemoration that's going to happen. We know that the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women is about to be held. So tell us, what is your concern about the gender-based violence and your concerns about violence against women? What are you involved in, and what are the procedures that you undertake?
Yeah, so the 16 days of activism on violence against women, goes on from the 25th of November until the 10th of December every year. So this is 16 days at which there are a whole host of activities to commemorate that event. And the Forum on Gender-Based Violence is having a series of events including campaigns, walks, a policy dialogue with policy makers to influence the laws and policies on violence against women.
Okay.
So that's really what the campaign and the forum is about.
And this 16 days, alright, does this happen globally?
Yes,
It's a global campaign. Okay. Certainly, I think in all of our countries we work on violence against women all through the year. But these 16 days are particularly marked to highlight the issue, and so different countries do different things.
Okay.
And in fact, on the 25th, we had a walk in Colombo saying "Take Back the Night" to make the streets safe for women.
Yes.
So that it was really good. Lots of people came. It was a torchlit march, and we walked up to Kanatta.
Wow. From Rajagiri?
From Rajagiri. And so with placards, with slogans, with some people had drums and whatever.
Yeah,
so
that's a very interesting phrase. Win back the night, right? That's a very interesting phrase. So it's a common thing that streets are not very safe for women out there. But do you think it's similar in every country? Do you think it's worldwide? Do you think it's the same case when it comes to women not being safe out in the streets late at night? Or do you think there are precautions that are being taken? Exception maybe could be Sri Lanka. Do you think there are precautions taken outside of Sri Lanka against these kind of activities?
I think it depends. I mean, I think violence against women is universal in a way that, and you're talking about rape, sexual harassment,
of course, yeah,
violence within the home, but in other contexts there might be female genital mutilation, there's honor killings which we don't have here, there's female infanticide, etc. So I think the way violence manifests in different contexts may be different, and the magnitude of the problem may differ from country to country, but it is a common issue.
But like you said, the degrees may vary.
Yes.
Right? It's kind of interesting to know that when it comes to violence against women, it doesn't only include physical or sexual violence. I read something interesting that there is emotional abuse, even economic abuse is part of the entire violence. Can you please elaborate a little bit about these categories of violence that women can get into, that they can be absorbed into, because for the audience to know a little bit of how it differs and how it actually occurs in society?
Yes, I mean, I can talk a little bit about the sort of legal framework surrounding those kinds of abuse. So, traditionally, or for a long time, it was considered as more sexual, more sort of physical types of violence. But then there's an increased recognition that verbal abuse, emotional, and even economic types of violence, because that is a form of violence, although not as commonly thought, is as important to tackle. So it could be, quite often, not quite often, but some of the instances that you might come across with regard to domestic violence is sort of not having enough to eat, not giving the woman what she needs to lead a healthy life.
That's true.
So those kinds of things can become economic abuse, and emotional abuse is often to do with patterns of abuse, where you systematically destroy somebody's self-esteem, self-confidence over a period of time. So it isn't just one off hurting, which often happens in relationships, and it can go both ways. So it's actually a certain way of behaving that is actually now considered an offense and considered something that you can get protection against.
And as a legal advisor, where do we draw the fine line between being criticized and being abused as a woman? As a woman, you can be criticized for being, say, less confident, less work friendly, or less friendly, or less kind. But how can you define whether you're being criticized or whether you're actually being verbally abused?
Yeah, I think if you look at our law, one thing that's interesting about our domestic violence law is that it's gender neutral. So if you take India, for instance, it's actually a law that protects women from domestic violence, whereas in Sri Lanka we decided that we would protect everybody. So if you beat up your husband has a right to go to the court just as much as the wife does, and that in fact often does happen. Yes. So it's really, when you ask where you draw the line, it applies to both genders. Where would a man consider criticism going beyond that to go into verbal abuse or violence, and it would apply in a very similar way to a woman.
Okay, and when it comes to professional backgrounds, I'm sure there's a lot of violence going on, even in professional backgrounds, not only against women but also against men. So how do you highlight that? How do you actually tell the audiences, where do you draw the line between being professionally abused at workplaces, by your bosses maybe, or by your colleagues, or whether they're actually just cornering you and making it really psychological? How do you define those things?
But I think all of this is actually defined in the law.
All right.
So if you look at the Penal Code of Sri Lanka, you have rape very clearly defined, and rape is an offense that can be committed only against a woman. Whereas you might have sexual molestation and grave sexual abuse and things like that, which can be committed against both men and women. Then you have sexual harassment, which is also very clearly defined. Domestic violence or violence against women within the home is not so defined in the Penal Code, but if you look at the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, which was passed in 2005, what it says is all of the offences against the body, which is mentioned in the Penal Code, is an offence if it's done against a woman inside the house. So all these offences, so there is no lack of clarity because the law is very clear.
So I understand the fact that if there is no lack of clarity, maybe it's the fact that there's a lack of acknowledgement there's a lack of giving education, and there's a lot of ignorance going on.
Exactly. I think the question of acknowledgement is very important, because that is what we do not acknowledge. And if you take, for instance, the question of sexual harassment, very often we get told, oh, he just only whistled at you, he's just having fun, it's a good thing, it's a nice thing. And if it doesn't harm you and hurt you, it's fine. But the moment it harms and hurts and it becomes a nuisance, it's not fine. So the degree depends on who is being so-called the victim. But if I don't like it, I don't like it. When a woman doesn't want to have sex and says no, she means no, and that no, if you transgress that is an offense. So the offense depends very much on what the violation is, and where the woman says no, you're hurting me, you're harming me, this is an offense. And the problem, I think, for us very often is that men don't seem sometimes to be able to accept that it is an offense. Even with domestic violence, very often women are told, don't complain about this. This is a private matter. If you complain, it will lead to a breakup of your marriage, in your family. And what we are saying is, it is a question of needing to look at the perpetrator. Why do they get away with this? And that women have the right to be free from violence. So that is, I think, what we want to highlight. That is certainly what we highlight in our work, and what we want to bring about.
And I think it's very important also what Kumi says, the focus on the perpetrator, because again, people think if there's an issue in society, you just bring in a law.
Okay.
And quite often laws have not failed to address the problem, because there are issues with law enforcement, there are issues with implementation. So if you take sexual harassment, for instance, we came up with a series of amendments in 1995 on sexual harassment. And the idea was that would pick up issues like harassing women in buses, for instance. Latest figures show that the rates of harassment of women in public transport is like 70 or 80%. It's incredibly high, and yet it goes, as Kumi says, quite untouched and unaddressed. But then unless you sort out the part of attitudes of men and what they think about at what point a woman says no, the law is not going to be very helpful, because what is a woman who is going to actually take the time, trouble to go into a police station, make the complaint, and there are issues of corroboration, who are the witnesses. So I think we need to get beyond this whole issue of law is the answer to our ills.
Yes, I totally understand. By the discussion that we were having, I understood that there are two very important things that Sri Lankan people should know about when it comes to gender-based violence against women. It's denial and ignorance. Now, there's ignorance, so much of ignorance going on. Obviously, like you mentioned before, there are very clear laws. But obviously, if you go into the further parts of Sri Lanka, many women would not know about those laws. They would have just ignored, or maybe they didn't know at all, right? And there are also women who keep denying the fact that they are getting violated. Their rights are getting violated, and they are also getting abused. Does it depend on culture? I've noticed this a lot. The fact that women just tend to keep quiet and tolerate violence against themselves, their bodies, their mentality, their personality, even their professions. Is there something with our culture, with Sri Lankan culture, that women tend to actually quiet down and tolerate whatever that's going on? Maybe things are changing when it comes to metropolitan areas, but in further parts of the country, do you think culture still affects?
Yeah, I think there's two things happening. One is, like you said, there is denial and there's ignorance, but there's also a trivialization and a normalization.
Can you explain what that is?
And maybe I'll talk about, picking up on what Kumi and Sairini said, say about domestic violence. Okay. So for a long time, even though, say if you beat somebody on the street, that's a criminal offense, right? Yes. But people can beat their wives at home, and the police would not take action because that was considered a private matter, a family matter, which the criminal law should not get involved in.
Yes.
But because women's organizations demanded that this situation should change, in 2005 we got what is called the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, which allows a woman or a man, because like Kumi said, it's a gender neutral law, to file for a protection order, which means she can go to the magistrate and say that she's being beaten, whether emotionally or physically, and based on the evidence the court can give an order which protects her from the violence. It may mean that the husband is barred from his own home. It can include other things. But despite this law, you find that many political leaders, etc., trivializing and saying, oh, domestic violence is only until the rice is cooked.
I don't know whether a phrase that everybody seems to struggle up into.
Yeah, right? In Sinhala, that gedara sandu bata idenakang vitarai. So for me, what that seems to do is to normalize and trivialize this violence, and telling women to tolerate it at whatever cost. So on the one hand, even though the laws, these new laws are there, culturally it is being justified.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to know. Alright, on that note, we will discuss more about this, but we have to go for a very short commercial break right now. Don't go away, we have more things to discuss about gender-based violence and how we can prevent it.